Mommy's not going to feed us. Because she never feeds us. She's too busy.
I'm on my live thing, remember? Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everybody. It is 1:03, 3 minutes late. My kids are hungry, so I have to get this done because they're going crazy. If they don't get food, they get angry, like hangry birds, like penguins that don't get their food. Yes. My kids actually finished their work today, so we're actually watching the movie Mr. Popper's Penguins. Where we get that on Netflix?
No, you just tell her about it.
So it's on Xfinity, so it's on demand?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. So if you're interested in watching the movie too, I think that's a great idea. If you get bored this weekend, maybe pop on. You can go onto the Xfinity remote and say, play Mr. Popper's Penguins. It's a free movie, correct?
What's that? Yeah.
Mr. Popper's Penguins? I imagine it is by being that they're watching it. Yeah. So anyway, Mr. Popper's Penguins is on demand on Xfinity if you have Comcast. So it's actually a really good movie. We paused it because I want to see the ending of it. But it's actually a pretty good, exciting movie. So definitely highly recommend it so far. All right. So yesterday was chapter 10. And going back to chapter 10, it was called Shadows. So we learned that they visited the town, and then they came back, and then they went to the barber shop, and then we found out that Captain Cook wasn't feeling very good. And so Mr. Popper tried to find out why Captain Cook wasn't feeling good, and he wasn't sure. But he did reach out to an aquarium, and they think that maybe Captain Cook is lonely. So they are about to send him a penguin. So a penguin from the Antarctic, and they have a penguin as well that is sad. So they're going to send Mr. Popper Greta, and we're going to see if that cures Captain Cook's loneliness and Greta's loneliness. I don't know. So the next chapter is called Greta. So Captain Cook did not die after all. There were two penguins in the refrigerator, one standing and one sitting on the nest under the ice cubes. They are like as two peas, said Mrs. Popper. As two penguins, you mean, answered Mr. Popper. Yes, but which is which? At the moment, the standing penguin jumped out of the icebox, reached inside, and took one of the checkers from under the sitting penguin, whose eyes were closed in sleep, and laid it at Mr. Popper's feet. See, Mama, he's thanking me, said Mr. Popper, patting the penguin. At the South Pole, that's the way a penguin shows his friendship, only it uses a stone instead of a checker. This one must be Captain Cook, and he's trying to show that he's grateful to us for getting him Greta and saving his life. Yes, but how are we going to tell them apart? It's very confusing. I will go down in the cellar and get some white paints and paint their names on their black backs. And he opened the cellar door and started down, nearly tripping when Captain Cook unexpectedly tobogganed down after him. When he came up again, Mr. Popper had a brush and a small paint can in his hands, while the penguin had a white Captain Cook on his back. Gook, said Captain Cook, proudly showing his name to the penguin in the icebox. Gaw, said the sitting penguin, and squirming around in her nest, she turned her back to Mr. Popper. So Mr. Popper sat down on the floor in front of the icebox, while Captain Cook watched, first with one eye, then the other. What are you going to call her? Asked Mrs. Popper. Greta. It's a nice name, said Mrs. Popper, and she seems like a nice bird, too. But the two of them fill the icebox, and pretty soon there will be eggs, and the next thing you know, the icebox won't be big enough for your penguins. Besides, you haven't done a thing about I'm going to keep the food cold, on how I'm going to keep the food cold. I will, my love, promised Mr. Popper. It is already pretty cold for the middle of October, and it will soon be cold enough for outside for Captain Cook and Greta. Yes, said Mrs. Popper, but if you keep them outside the house, they might run away. Mamma, said Mr. Popper, you put your food back in the icebox tonight, and we will just keep Greta and Captain Cook in the house. Captain Cook can help me move the nest into the other room. Then I will open the windows, leave them open, and the penguins will be comfortable. They will be comfortable, all right, said Mrs. Popper, but what about us? We can wear our winter overcoats and hats in the house, said Mr. Popper as he got up to go around and open all the windows. It certainly is colder, said Mrs. Popper, sneezing. The next few days were even colder, but the Poppers soon got used to sitting around in their overcoats. Greta and Captain Cook always occupied the chairs nearest the open windows. One night, quite early in November, there was a blizzard, and when the Poppers got up in the morning, there were large drifts of snow all over the house. Imagine that. A snowstorm, having your windows open and then snowing in the house. Crazy. One night, quite early in November, there was a blizzard, and when the Poppers got up in the morning, there was large drifts of snow all over the house. Mrs. Popper wanted to get her broom and had Mr. Popper bring his snow shovel to clear away the drifts. But the penguins were having so much fun in the snow that Mr. Popper insisted it should be left where it was. In fact, he even went so far as to bring an old garden hose up from the basement and sprinkle all the floors that night until the water was an inch deep. By the next morning, all the Popper floors were covered with smooth ice, with snowdrifts around the edges near the open windows. Both Greta and Captain Cook were tremendously pleased with all that ice. They would go up on the snowdrift at one end of the living room and run down one behind the other onto the ice until they were running too fast to keep their balance. Then they would flop on their stomachs and toboggan across the slippery ice. This amused Bill and Janie so much that they tried it too, on their stomachs of their overcoats. This in turn pleased the penguins greatly. Then Mr. Popper moved all the furniture in the living room to one side so that the penguins and the children would have plenty of room for real sliding. It was a little hard at first to move the furniture because the feet of the chairs had frozen into the ice. Toward afternoon, the weather got warmer and the ice began to melt. Now, Papa, said Mrs. Popper, you really must do something. We can't go on like this. But Captain Cook and Greta, both fat and sleek, and the children have never been so rosy. It may be very healthy, said Mrs. Popper, as she mopped up the floor, but it's very untidy. I will do something about it tomorrow, said Mr. Popper. And then that is our picture of their living room, I suppose. So Mr. Popper has totally lost it. He's now opened up the windows. It's snowing inside the house. They're having fun, but I don't know, not in my house. Even though I like to have a penguin for a pet one day, maybe. I don't think I could turn my house into the Antarctic. But the one good thing that we learned in this chapter is that now Captain Cook is happy that he has a friend, Greta, and Greta seems happy now too, as well. So I guess that's a good thing. And the kids are having fun, Bill and Janie. And Mr. Popper seems to be having fun as well. But I can't imagine this can go on too much longer. So chapter 12 was called More Mouths to Feed. So now obviously they have to feed Greta, so they have to get more food. What else could that mean, more mouths to feed? What were they worried about? I don't know. You have to think about that. I'm going to ask that question. What do you think they were worried about now that Captain Cook and Greta are together? Maybe possibly more mouths to feed. The next chapter in chapter 12, what could be a prediction of what might be happening next? I don't know. Think about it. All right, guys. I hope that you guys have a great weekend. So we'll get to chapter 12 on Monday. So Monday and Tuesday next week, you will have normal days of lessons. Wednesday will be your makeup day. And then Thursday will be a half a day. So it'll be half of school. So it won't be a lot of assignments. I'm going to try and maybe make Thursday a fun day. Trying to think about maybe trying a Kahoot. I know Izzy's teacher tried it. It didn't work out too well because we had to split screens. But maybe I can do something similar to that. And like I said, for social studies, I'm going to try and get the Pirates treasure map activity online so that we can continue to do that activity, the project-based map skills and landforms activity that I have planned for you. Make sure today that you do your 15 minutes of iReady. You should have an hour for the week. Make sure that you have your summaries complete, your spelling city assignments, and your daily edits, rewriting the entire paragraph with correct spelling, punctuation, and capitalization. Next week for our standards, I think I'm probably going to go to this week we focused on ask and answer questions, literature standards, making inferences, reading Enemy Pie and Scholastic, and then also character traits, how a character changes from the beginning of the story to the end of the story. Next week, I think I'm going to go to main idea and practice main idea a couple of times. I'm going to do a couple of lessons showing you how I figure out main idea of a paragraph in a text, and then I'm going to have you practice on Monday and Tuesday. And then Thursday, we're going to have some fun lessons because it's a half a day. All right, I hope everybody has a great weekend. If you have any questions, you can either email me, you can send me a Google Classroom private message, or you can have your Parents Dojo message me. I think communication has been very good recently. So keep it up, keep working hard, and hope everybody has a great weekend. Bye.